Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the Inside NASCAR. We're at the Sears Point Road Course in Sonoma, California, where the Save Mart 300 NASCAR Winston Cup race is scheduled to roll off this afternoon. Mark Martin will start from the pole. Rusty Wallace will start on the outside pole. No threat of rain here today. Everything should be okay as far as the weather's concerned. Phil Wurz is in our studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. He'll preview today's race and catch us up to date on all the news. Good morning, Phil.
Thanks, Ned, and good morning, everybody. Well, you know, while I'm still drying out from Talladega, as Ned said, it should be a great day for racing on the road course in Sonoma, California. You know, a couple of interesting notes from the event, which has only been held there since 1989. Only Ernie Irvan in 1994 has won from the pole, and of the 8 races there, 5 have been won from the top 4 starting positions. The late Davey Allison won from the furthest back in the field as he started 13th in 1991. Well, we'll preview today's Save Mart 300 and recap Saturday's exciting Craftsman truck race from Portland, Oregon, where a 4th different driver saw victory lane this season. Those stories are coming up, but first, here's a look at what else is ahead in this 1-hour edition of Inside NASCAR. It may have taken 95 races, but Jeff Burton finally got his first career Winston Cup win last month in the inaugural Interstate Batteries 500 at the Texas Motor Speedway. We'll talk to the first-time winner about that win and his second season as a member of the Roush Racing stable. Following a disappointing run in Winston Cup racing in '96, Elton Sawyer had a homecoming of sorts in '97, returning to the Busch Grand National Series. Sawyer has teamed up with the Aiken-Sutton Motorsports team, which he drove for during the '94-95 BGN Series. We'll fill you in on his reunion with the 38 team. When Hollywood brought Days of Thunder to the theaters, reviews were mixed about its portrayal of NASCAR racing. The folks who produced the show Baywatch are giving it another shot with a made-for-TV movie scheduled to air in the fall. We'll take you behind the scenes for a sneak peek. All this and more coming up on Inside NASCAR.
Inside NASCAR is brought to you by Milwaukee's Best. When you're looking for a different breed of beer, unleash the beast, Milwaukee's Best. And by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Drivers, race teams, and race fans. The 1997 Simpson Race Products catalog is now available, featuring all the new products and services for '97, plus Simpson's complete line of racer and fan gear. To get your copy, call 1-800-71-RACIN and join Team Simpson today.
And welcome back. The NASCAR Winston Cup Series is in California wine country this weekend for one of 2 road course races on the circuit. Sears Point, the site for today's Save Mart 300, where Mark Martin is on the pole. We know Martin has never won at Sears Point, but has finished second in this race 3 times, including the last 2 years. You know, there were plenty of events in the Bay Area this week leading up to the race. And on the left coast with more is Tyler Potter. Good morning, Tyler.
Thanks, Phil, and welcome to beautiful San Francisco. You know, the Winston Cup circuit only comes to the Bay Area once a year. So as you can imagine, when they get here, drivers and their families love to see the many attractions. Wednesday, they paid a visit to Alcatraz. Dale Jarrett, Robbie Gordon, and Rick Mast were on hand to take part in a late afternoon press conference. Before that, they toured the famed prison, hearing of past escape attempts and of the legendary Al Capone.
Probably the most notorious criminal who served time here was Alphonse Scarface Capone. Capone was one of the people who was sent here when Alcatraz first opened, along with Machine Gun Kelly and several other notable criminals. And he was here for about 4.5 years.
Part of the tour included a Q&A with former inmate Leon Whitey Thompson. Afterwards, the drivers talked about what it would have been like serving time on the Rock.
I would, one way or the other, I'd jump in the water, I'd do something to try to get out of here. I mean, if you're going to die, if you're going to get out in a couple of years, yeah, if you can handle it that long, maybe. But if you're sentenced to stay the rest of your life, nah. I'd jump in this water one way or the other and swim. I don't know how far I'd make it, but I'd die in the water probably, wouldn't die in that building.
Do you want to be locked up? You're wearing the hat. Tell us why you're doing that.
I don't think they could keep me here. I think I could swim across the waters. I think I can make it. I got a lot of willpower.
On Thursday, the sightseeing continued as a handful of drivers drove their Winston Cup cars across the Golden Gate Bridge in an effort to promote the bridge's 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. The cars then proceeded through the Marina District, finishing in downtown San Francisco.
I thought we were going to run 45 miles per hour on it, but the traffic was so bad. I was in first gear most of the time, but I got 45 after I got off the bridge.
Friday, it was back to business as the setting shifted from San Francisco to Sears Point. The raceway is in the process of a $25 million facelift. Some of the improvements for this year's race include an additional 60 feet of runoff for turns 4, 5, and 6, and a new media center. Work is expected to be completed by June of '98, with an additional 40,000 seats being added. In news on the track, Joe Nemechek will drive Robbie Gordon's car in the upcoming Winston 500 at Talladega. Gordon will be at Indianapolis trying to qualify for the May 25th Indianapolis 500. Now, while Gordon expects to run both the Indy 500 and Coca-Cola 600, John Andretti will not, saying no to qualifying at Indy and yes to Talladega. The number 9 Ford of Harry Melling is being driven this weekend by West Coast driver Jeff Davis, who's filling in this one race for Lake Speed. The car is being sponsored by Ultra Shield. And in case you're wondering if Jeff Bodine's car looks different, it is. The QVC Ford is emblazoned with the name Dawn Gillis, who is the lucky winner of QVC's Your Name Gets Around sweepstakes. More than 35,000 people entered. The road course at Sonoma is a welcome change for many drivers, but don't tell that to Chad Little and Bobby Labonte. Little crashed his primary car in Friday's practice and failed to qualify in second-round qualifying. Labonte's crash in qualifying sent him to a backup car. He'll start 29th. And speaking of qualifying, it appeared that defending champion Rusty Wallace would sit on the pole for the Save Mart 300. That was until Mark Martin, who was one of the final 3 to hit the 2.5-mile road course, set a track record with a lap of 97.751 seconds, 92.807 miles an hour.
I think my race team real confident. You know, they were confident coming out here, the guys that have worked so extra hard this year because we've changed so many things about our program. We've made a lot of progress. They were pretty pumped up about coming. I was too, you know, because you come out here, this is driving a car. You know, when you're shifting and gassing and braking and steering and slipping and sliding, that is driving to me. And you know, I looked forward to coming out here, but I look forward to outside of Daytona. I mean, outside of Talladega coming up. I look forward to everything. I mean, our race team's so good right now, man. When we go to Charlotte, look out.
Behind Martin and Wallace were Jeff Gordon, Terry Labonte, and Brett Bodine, who's hoping to follow in his brother's footsteps. Jeff won the last road course race at Watkins Glen last fall.
I'm real proud of what the guys gave me for a race car. Just totally rebuilt this car from last year, and it definitely paid off. And of course, with the Jack Roush power under the hood, he knows what he needs to go fast here at the road courses.
As for second round qualifying, those going home include David Green, Robert Presley, Chad Little, Joe Nemechek, Dick Trickle, and Rick Mast. After spinning Friday, Darrell Waltrip posted the fastest time in second round qualifying. He'll roll off 26th. Jeremy Mayfield and Ricky Craven had to take provisionals. So your first 5 rows go like this. Mark Martin's on the pole after finishing second in this race last year. He has 3 second-place finishes at Sears Point, but has never won. Defending champion Rusty Wallace starts on the outside pole. Hendrick teammates Jeff Gordon and Terry Labonte occupy row 2. Row 3 features the Fords of Brett Bodine and Michael Waltrip. For Waltrip, it's his best qualifying effort of the year. Brett's brother Jeff will start on the inside of row 4. Points leader Dale Jarrett starts next to him after posting his 9th top 10 qualifying run of the season. And finally, in row 5, it's a couple of veteran road course drivers in Wally Dallenbach and Ricky Rudd.
Thanks, Tyler. Meanwhile, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series is spending 2 weekends on the West Coast. Next week, the trucks will be outside of Seattle in Monroe, Washington. But Saturday, they were in Rip City, Portland, Oregon, for the running of the Craftsman 200. Rains delayed the start of the race for about 2 hours, but hey, if it's got wheels, let's go. Ron Hornaday, Michael Dockett, and Kenny Irwin getting down and dirty on the tractors to pass the time. Hey, could this be the next racing series? When racing did commence, pole sitter Rich Bickle from Edgerton, Wisconsin, led Ron Hornaday into turn 1, but Hornaday would claim the lead on lap number 1 and hold it for the first 43 laps. Chuck Bound brought out 1 of 9 caution flags on the day on lap 132. Bound would end up behind the pit wall with a busted drive shaft, finishing 27th and leaving Portland 10th in the points chase. Just 6 laps later, Bob Keselowski in the Mopar performance truck appears to tap the back end of Brian Refner as he tried to get to the inside. Refner spins and scrapes the outside wall. He would finish 21st. The incident also collected Dan Press, who sustained extensive damage to the left front quarter of the Spears Manufacturing Chevy and left Portland depressed in 18th. And how about Tammy Jo Kirk? Tammy Jo driving the lovable Ford for Jeff Bodine Racing, dueled Joe Ruttman for 3rd place 3/4 of the way through the race. A great showing for Kirk, who qualified 3rd, but she and Ruttman tangled late in the race and ended up finishing 13th and 14th respectively. This was a 2-truck show. Rich Bickle and Ron Hornaday exchanged the lead 4 times all day, but Bickle led the final 15 laps to claim his first NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series win. It was also team owner Darrell Waltrip's first major NASCAR win since 1992 when DW won the Southern 500 at Darlington. With the win, Bickle extends his point series lead over Jack Sprague to 41 points.
I told myself I'm not losing this race. Unless the motor blew up or we had a flat tire, something happened. Ron was great on restarts. I don't know what kind of transmissions he got in the thing, but he's a true champion. He got into me a couple times. I got into him a couple times, but this is short track racing his best. And, you know, I can't say enough for people at Die Hard. There's 30,000 employees there and 300,000 Sears people across the country. And this is for you. You waited 3 years for this, and I'm glad I'm the one that got to do it.
And congratulations to Rich Bickle. That's all the time we have for this segment of Inside NASCAR. When we come back, Ned rejoins you from Elton Sawyer's race shop. And later today, the green flag falls at 4 p.m. Eastern in Sonoma, California for the running of the Save Mart 300. Mark Martin and Rusty Wallace starting on row 1. Don't forget, next Saturday, May 10th, the NASCAR Winston Cup Series heads back to Talladega. That's the makeup date for the Winston 500. Then the series heads to Charlotte for Speed Weeks. You can catch the all-star race, the Winston Select, under the lights on Saturday night, May 17th, right here, only on TNN. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Inside NASCAR continues in just a moment.
We're at Aiken Sutton Motorsports in the Mooresville Motorsports Center near Mooresville, North Carolina. Aiken Sutton owns the Barbasol Fords, which are driven by Elton Sawyer in the NASCAR Busch Grand National Series. This is somewhat of a reunion for this combination. Elton Sawyer had driven for this team a couple of years ago, then went to Winston Cup in 1996, and is back with them now in 1997. They've had some good runs in this car in 1997, but they've also had some bad luck along the way. Tyler Potter talked with Elton Sawyer about it.
For the first time in Elton Sawyer's career, he's thinking championship. A veteran of 15 years on the Busch Series, Sawyer has never been higher in points than this year. He's been 5th on 2 separate occasions, thanks to a 2nd-place finish in Atlanta and a 6th at Hickory.
I think I have all the ingredients here. We have a great sponsor in Barbasol. We have the funding to do what we need to do. Bob and Brad have assembled a great group of guys to work on the car. Eddie Pardue, a young crew chief, but someone I've known for a long time and been with this team for a long time. So the communication and the chemistry is there between he and I, so we can get the cars set up. And I feel like I am in the best position I've been in 10 years to win races and be a contender for the championship.
Sawyer has 1 win to his credit at Myrtle Beach in '94. He's close to winning more. His 2 top 10s after 11 races this year are double his total from all of last year.
We're pleased. I wouldn't say we're happy, but I mean, we're not going to be happy unless we come to the racetrack, we lead every lap, and we win the race. I just think that's the mentality that we have to be successful at this profession. So we're going to continue to work hard and look at it on Monday morning to the fact of what mistakes we may have made on a given weekend, whether we won or run second, and keep working to get better.
Sawyer's approaching a milestone after 20 years of racing. With over $986,000 in career Busch earnings, he's just $13,000 shy of the $1 million mark.
I tell people all the time, and I really honestly believe this, and I mean this, and I think a lot of drivers in the garage would say the same thing. I don't do this for the money. I really don't. I mean, it's nice to get paid to do something that you really enjoy doing, but I love driving race cars. And I think if I if anything that I'm a little bit disappointed in is the fact that I haven't won more races. That will be the thing at the end of my career, that I want to sit back and make sure that I have the amount of wins that I want to have. I don't know what that number is. It may be 5 or 10, or it may be 3. I can't honestly say. But I do want to be more competitive, and I want to win races. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is this is a team sport. And it starts at the top, getting the financial backing from the sponsor, and not just them giving the teams the money to go out and race, but being involved and being a part of it, good and bad. Our sport has grown so much over the past 5 years, and in the last 10 years, for sure. When I first started, I mean, we showed up with open trailers and dualies and things like that, and now you've got to have a tractor and trailer, and it's a big business now.
Sawyer does have Winston Cup experience, 29 races to be exact, between 95 and 96. 20 of those were for Junior Johnson in 95. 8 of the 9 in 96 were for David Blair. Things didn't work out, but Elton says there are no regrets.
I've had a great career. I don't feel like I'm on the downhill side of it, although I have been doing this since, I guess the first race I ever ran was like in 1977 at Langley Speedway. So, yeah, I would like the opportunity to do some Winston Cup racing, but I had a taste of that, and I feel like I know now what I need to have when I go back over there to at least have the opportunity to be successful. And if I don't get that opportunity, I can be content to run this series. NASCAR's done a great job. We go to a lot of great places to race. I make a good living. I have Sundays off, and it beats getting a real job.
Hi, this is Jeff Hammond, crew chief of the Parts America Chevrolet. Fans often wondered how their favorite driver walks away from a wreck, whether it be a fire or just a hard lick at the wall. Some of the reasons why they do that, let me show you. First, you start with a driver's suit, flame retardant, complete with a set of matching gloves, not to mention a pair of shoes, flame resistant also. Different drivers like different style of helmets. This right here is one like Dale Earnhardt and Jimmy Spencer like to wear. It's an old-fashioned open face helmet, complete with your radio attachment. Darrell and a lot of the drivers today prefer a closed face helmet, complete with an air hose to keep them cool, fresh air coming into them. For some of the races, such as Bristol and Dover, the G-forces get pretty hard. Therefore, they also use a neck strap in the event of a wreck or fatigue. They also have a horse collar that goes under the neck to give us some support. One of the latest ones they've got as far as a horse collar includes this helmet attachment, as well as the collar and shoulder pads in the event of a hard lick. One of the other safety features that we found very important is custom fitted seats. This is one that Rich Bickle prefers, with a high back and a head support. These are hairs for his rib area, complete with a lumbar adjustment. Darrell, on the other hand, he prefers what I consider almost like a recliner, which has also the same rib supports, but Darrell's seats have what we call a shoulder supports, which in turn, if he happens to wreck, the shoulders help support him, keep him from bending over the edge of the seat, which in turn sometimes will save his rib area. A lot of drivers have suffered rib injuries in the last couple years, and a lot of guys are looking toward the seat like Darrell does use for that one purpose.
This is the car Elton Sawyer drove in a race at Nashville, Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. Now, while in Nashville, the television program America's Most Wanted was there doing a story on Chris Trickle, which is Dick Trickle's nephew. So they teamed up with Dick and NASCAR to do this story. Chris Trickle was shot while driving down the highway near Las Vegas, Nevada. Tyler Potter has the story.
When Chris Trickle was brutally shot in the head February 9th in Las Vegas, the story immediately grabbed the national spotlight. Chris was an up-and-coming Southwest driver with over 30 victories to his credit. He's also the nephew of current Busch and Winston Cup driver Dick Trickle. NASCAR immediately stepped in, throwing this benefit last month to raise money for Chris, who lies in a coma in a Las Vegas hospital.
We all have sons and daughters. I had one. That if you wrote a book on how you wanted your son to be, that's what I have.
The case took on even greater significance when John Walsh, host of America's Most Wanted, profiled the story last week.
This is really, really a sad case. This is a racing dynasty. This is a loving, caring family, and this is a young guy with a lot of potential, and police are completely stumped. Who would shoot this young guy between the eyes? It might have been a traffic argument, a gang shooting, a drive-by shooting, but this family needs to know, and we want to help them because we've caught 457 guys with the support of the American public. Maybe somebody had seen something and they'll make that call.
In addition to the story, Trickle's Duralube car was decorated with America's Most Wanted decals before last month's Busch race in Nashville. During the race, the in-car camera picked up the 1-800-CRIME-TV phone number, and a composite of the man police wanted to talk to was shown throughout the race. Dick's family even paid for ads in various national newspapers, urging people to watch the story on America's Most Wanted.
What happened to Chris, my nephew, there's just no reason, and, you know, if they can catch the guy, it might help down the road. And it's just been a long time. You know, I really feel bad for my brother and sister-in-law out there, and it's messed their whole life up, and, you know, for no reason. So hopefully, whatever happens will help.
Response to the story was tremendous. 38 calls were received the night the segment aired, including one, incredibly, from the man in the composite sketch who was in an LA County jail for an unrelated charge. America's Most Wanted will air the interview in this week's show. Chris Trickle remains in a coma and is listed in fair condition at a Las Vegas hospital.
Certainly our prayers and best wishes continue with Chris Trickle and his family. Still to come, a story on Jeff Burton, the mailbox, and lots more, so stay with us.
Our goal should be to put ourselves in position to try to win the championship, because until you've experienced that, until you've been together a long time as a team, that's a very, very lofty goal. I mean, that's a lofty goal for anyone to make.
The first victory for a NASCAR Winston Cup driver is always a sweet one, but it couldn't been any sweeter for Jeff Burton when he won his first last month at the new Texas Motor Speedway. He drives the Jack Roush Exide Batteries Ford number 99. That was a big win in anybody's book. And of course, they look forward to more wins too. That team was started in 1996, and they've come a long way since then. Brett McMillan talked to Jeff Burton about where they've been and where they are.
In Winston Cup racing, the next race is never far away. For most drivers, that's a good thing. They don't have to dwell on a bad week for long, or if they're on a roll, it's a chance to keep that momentum going. For Jeff Burton, though, that fact of life hasn't been so good. Since winning his first Winston Cup race in Texas's first race, he's hardly had time to enjoy it.
I've got to slow down just a little bit and just take time and really enjoy this, because it really is a special moment for myself, the team, for everybody at Roush Racing, and I want to be able to remember it and think good thoughts about it. I need to slow down just a little bit and give myself a chance to do that.
At some point he may, but for now Burton is content in the fact that he shared the triumph with those he values the most, his team and his family. That's why you didn't see some kind of unusual celebration on the way to victory lane. He just wanted to get there.
I'm a big believer in the team concept. I've always enjoyed sports because I enjoy being part of a team. That's what I get out of this thing. And the opportunity that we had right there to enjoy that together, and the feeling that came over me out of the sense of we as a group have achieved a goal is indescribable.
When Jeff took the checkered flag at Texas, it made history. As the Burtons, Ward and Jeff are now the 6th set of brothers to visit a Winston Cup victory lane. Ironically, there was a time in the early 90s when both were running on the Busch Series that they had a hard time pulling for each other.
It took us a while to learn how to do it. It took us a while to learn how to work together instead of against each other. It's a complicated issue when you first start, and it seems easy now, but when we were first starting, because it's so hard to get into Busch racing, you're trying so hard and you're so focused on trying to do it yourself that it's hard to pull for your brother at the same time, even though you want to. You know, you want to see your brother do well.
And to show how much they've grown, Jeff can now point towards Rockingham win in the fall of '95 as one of his biggest confidence builders.
I think we've helped each other. I know when Ward won Rockingham, it helped me. because I've raced against Ward. I know Ward's a very good racer, but I feel I can race with Ward. I don't think I'm any better than Ward, but I think I can race with him. So when he won Rockingham, I said, hey, you know, if he won Rockingham, then that means a lot for me. That means that I can go win. So I think we can help each other.
In return, Ward can thank Jeff for a little sales job he did on their parents that really gave their racing careers a boost.
The biggest break I got to begin with was my father giving me the opportunity by saying, me talking he and my mother into saying, hey, I don't want to go to college. I want to, you take that money and help me with my racing. He took that money and more and helped me get started and helped Ward get started as well. Without that initial boost, Ward and I, neither one would be here.
Here is now among the 51 drivers who have won Cup races in the sports modern era. Burton's string of 3 straight top 5 finishes also vaulted him into the top 5 in Winston Cup points. And that has folks mentioning Jeff Burton and Winston Cup title in the same breath. And even though Burton admits he hasn't come close to matching the goals he set for himself 10 years ago, he also understands how lofty a goal a Cup title would be right now.
I don't know if I'm ready as a driver to win the championship. I don't know if me and the team together are ready to win a championship. I feel like we're ready to contend for one. Our goal should be to put ourselves in position to try to win the championship, because until you've experienced that, until you've been together a long time as a team, that's a very, very lofty goal. I mean, that's a lofty goal for anyone to make.
And yet Burton feels comfortable that he's in the right place to make a run for the title eventually. He couldn't be happier with the combination of team owner Jack Roush and crew chief Buddy Parrott.
Jack gives us a lot of freedom. He lets us do a lot of things that he disagrees with. He's demanding on us. Now, he doesn't let us just run wild without convincing him and without explaining him our theory, but he gives us a tremendous amount of freedom. But he always has hanging over your head that he expects results. But he gives us enough, and he is the owner of this team. He has the right to expect that because he gives us everything it takes to win races. Buddy's the same way. He's given me the opportunity to try some things that some other crew chiefs that have been in this sport as long as he has would not have given a young driver an opportunity to do. Not only with me, but people in this team. He went and hired people that were not given the opportunity where they were working to do the things that they're doing now. He didn't go off recommendations. He didn't go off of people's credentials that they had done before. He went off what he saw in their eyes.
The rest is up to the driver, and that's what Jeff Burton is, not to mention a husband and father. And we all know how much wife Kim shared the joy and relief of that first win. Beyond that, Burton says he's a pretty boring guy. He loves his work so much it dominates his thoughts. It's also the thing that drives him.
My motivation comes from I don't want to use the word fear, but it essentially is fear, the fear of not being competitive, the fear of showing up at the racetrack and people not respecting you and your race team. That's something that I lose sleep over. I don't lose sleep over the thought of winning. I don't get nervous over the thought of having the opportunity to win or maybe the position to be able to win a championship one day. I get nervous about not having that opportunity.
Right now, more than ever, that fear is motivating him. That fear of finishing his career as a one-race wonder.
Still to come, the mailbox, and we also have a story on a made-for-TV movie, Steel Chariots, so don't go away. The Inside NASCAR mailbox is brought to you by Miller Lite. Our question today is from Jeremy Pune from Minot, North Dakota. How do the Winston Cup drivers attend regular church services on Sunday morning?
Hi, Jeremy, and we want to thank you for writing in and asking that question. I'm Max Helt, the chaplain with Winston Cup Racing, and every Sunday morning, right after the driver's meeting, which occurs 2 hours before race time, we meet together right here in the garage and have a church service. It opens up with someone singing, and then usually a driver will open the service, welcome everyone, lead in prayer. We'll sing some choruses together. Another driver or crew member will read scriptures, and then I'll preach a sermon. And that happens every week, and most of the drivers and their families are there every week. We run somewhere between 200 to 400 people in service every Sunday.
If you have a question for the Inside NASCAR mailbox, write to us at Inside NASCAR. Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Lite jacket and a cap and shirt from Chase Authentics, the authentic trackside apparel of NASCAR.
Our congratulations to Stephanie Boyd, who is now Stephanie Boyd Durner. She and her husband Jay got married over this past weekend, and we certainly wish them the best. Now, before she got married, Stephanie went out and spent a day on the set while they were shooting a made-for-TV movie called Steel Chariots. Now, this movie has the potential, maybe, to become a series on TV.
When Winston Cup standout DJ Tucker rolls into the garage area, other drivers sit up and take notice. Haven't heard of Tucker? Well, you will. That's the name of one of the main characters in a TV movie currently under production called Steel Chariots, which centers mostly around the world of NASCAR Winston Cup racing.
The show is about 4 generations of the Tucker family. So it's from the grandparents who used to be, doing moonshine at Thunder Road, all the way down to the young kids who are 8 and 10 years old doing enduro and go-karts. So it really is racing that will involve all racing, not just Winston Cup NASCAR racing. And I think, therefore, every episode of this movie, as well as every episode, will have about half the show with racing itself, and the other half to show the characters that surround it.
To capture the racing scenes, crews have been filming at tracks like Texas and Talladega. Greg Sack's car is being used to depict DJ's ride, and Lake Speed's machine has been painted with Ace Hardware colors. The sponsor DJ's arch-rival Glenn Walton carries in the film. While most of the racing footage is being shot during actual Winston Cup events, many of the pit scenes were shot over several days here at the Concord Motor Speedway. On this particular day, the actors are shooting a scene where an injured DJ has to stand by and watch his brother Brett drive backup for him. Tim Browder plays DJ, and turns out the producers couldn't have cast a better fit.
Went to my first NASCAR race in 1970, Charlotte Motor Speedway. Saw both races there probably for the next 10 years. My family races a Busch car, the number 78 car, Mark III Financial with Rodney Combs. Matter of fact, they build them right over the hill there. They're in a shop over there. My younger brother drove late model stock, still drives occasionally. He crashed and burned over there, so I know a little bit.
That's more than some of the actors can say. For several of them, Steel Chariots is their first experience with NASCAR racing.
Well, I knew very little about it, and my first exposure was Darlington about 3 weeks ago. And I was just amazed at the excitement generated. I was in the pits and, of course, watching everything assemble, and I watched all the cars, 42 cars out there, sitting side by side. And when those engines started, it was really quite thrilling, and I don't care if you're not a fan, you're going to be excited by that.
What we really liked about it, as well as the color and the action, all that stuff, is that it was a family sport. Families came to watch it, families participated in it. It was fathers, sons, brothers, and whenever you have that, you have a great relationship. And in television, family shows are a staple of television, especially if they're against an interesting background. So you have one of the most interesting backgrounds possible. You have a family that's very close, very tight, and they're involved in a billion-dollar sport, which gives you power and intrigue, all kinds of stuff going on.
The producers of Steel Chariots are the same guys who produced Baywatch, now the most-watched series in TV history. That might make some conservatives nervous, but the folks at NASCAR say they're keeping close tabs on the project.
Yes, I've got some concern about it, because I personally, with a racing background, I'm not quite sure where that line gets drawn between the real thing and Hollywood. We're just trying to stay on top of it. And the people that we're working with at BSB Productions are very, very aware of it. They, too, really want it to be right.
We dedicated ourselves to spending a lot of time researching, talking to drivers, mechanics, pit crews, and teams in general, because we really wanted to represent the sport so that the fans believe what we were showing is accurate. And we know years ago Days of Thunder didn't do that. And there was a big backlash in terms of the racing fans looking at Days of Thunder and knowing that it wasn't accurate. And we have to be here every week, as opposed to Days of Thunder was you shoot one movie, you're gone. And we want that relationship with NASCAR and all of the teams and all of the drivers so that everyone cooperates and are happy with what we're putting on the screen.
And to ensure that what they're doing on the screen is authentic, the cast and crew have been working with people from all levels of NASCAR.
Curtis Franklin, I play the front tire changer. We're part of the Tucker family pit crew. Yeah, I've been training with the real pit crew guys, changing tires and hanging out, getting the inside scoop, so to speak.
They love it. I mean, they want to learn everything that they can learn. Just, you know, they try to absorb everything they could possibly, you know, see or do, and they're real willing to learn. You know, they want to do it right. They want to do it in, you know, detail. I mean, it's really great. You know, it's amazing how interested they are in NASCAR and, you know, and what's going on with NASCAR and Winston Cup racing.
My character is a mechanic, and she also races enduro racers. So I had to learn a lot about enduro and go-karts. I know nothing about it. And I spent about 2 days with mechanics, learning the lingo and learning what a crescent wrench was and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I had to do, right when I got here, I spent about a week just sort of absorbing everything I could.
Steel Chariots is scheduled to air as a 2-hour movie on Fox Networks sometime in September, with hopes of becoming an hour-long weekly series. That would bring a whole new aspect of motorsports entertainment to people who are already race fans, and it could also help attract a new audience to the sport.
The thing about this sport that makes it work and makes it exciting for the fans is that they know these drivers, they know their characters, they know the person, they know who's in that car. Because if you just watch the cars going around the track, people say, oh, you know, you're just going around in circles. That's not too exciting. But if you know who's in there, you know what's at stake, and you understand the fine points of the setup of the car and the changes that go on in the pits and the importance of teamwork and all that stuff, it takes on a whole different level. So what we hope to do is educate the uneducated audience, fulfill the anticipation of the educated audience, and really get them into what's at stake in each race because they'll know the people involved.
So you might as well get to know the Tucker family, because if these guys have their way, they could be racing Steel Chariots for some time.
The inaugural Banquet Frozen Foods 300 took place on June the 11th, 1989. Ricky Rudd, driving the Kenny Bernstein King Racing Buick, took the victory after a hard-fought battle with eventual 1989 champion Rusty Wallace. This was Rudd's first and only win in '89. In 1990, Rusty Wallace was the reigning Winston Cup champion and grabbed his second of 2 victories, driving the Blue Max Pontiac for Raymond Beadle.
I had a lot of things go my way today. You know, when Ricky and Dale and some of the other guys got in that wreck earlier, it really left a big door open for me. I really thought Ernie was going to run stronger than he did. I don't know if he had a problem or what, but I just like to thank the whole crew because, man, they did a great job. And this car always seems to work good. We did a lot of chassis changing to accommodate this course. We ran a lot stronger this year than we ran last year.
Oh, and by the way, ever wonder what it's like to get sprayed with champagne in Victory Lane? Thanks, Rusty. In 1991, Davey Allison drove the Texaco Haviland Ford to the winner's circle after NASCAR stripped Ricky Rudd of the victory because of unnecessary roughness when he made the final pass on Allison.
If Ricky had got alongside of me, then I'd have raced him clean. But you know that I hate to see what happened, and I think justification came out in the end. We're happy with the win. We felt like we could hold him off anyways. I had held him off for about 5 laps already. And we were pretty confident that we could just run the line, and he was going to have to work hard to get alongside of us. But, you know, of course, this is road course racing, and they always have some controversy involved.
Other Sears Point winners include Ernie Irvan with wins in '92 and '94, Jeff Bodine in '93. In 1995, Dale Earnhardt took his first road course victory, and last year's winner, Rusty Wallace.
I tell you, track position is pretty important when you got a car that was as good as his was, and a car that was good as mine. So I'm just real happy today. It was a pretty dramatic win, you know, with passing right here. Then Mark coming from 31st to second. I was glad that Mark made it up to the front because he's a hell of a good friend of mine. He did a good job out there. I was proud of him.
So Rusty Wallace might be a pretty good pick for this weekend Save Mart Supermarkets 300.
We need to take a short break right now, and as we leave you for this break, here's a look at what's coming up next week right here on Inside NASCAR on TNN.
1997 has seen a rough start for the number 28 half of the Robert Yates Racing stable, but add to that rumors of a split between Irvin and Yates, and you have a season that they might just want to forget. We sat down with the owner-driver combo and cleared the air about the rest of 97 and what the future might hold for Irvin and Yates Racing. You can add Joe Gibbs Racing to the list of multi-car operations as they announce that open-wheel juggernaut Tony Stewart will come on board beginning in '98 as a teammate to Bobby Labonte. We'll fill you in on their plans for the future next week, right here on Inside NASCAR.
Lance Hooper is not a household name in NASCAR Winston Cup and Busch Grand National racing, but he is on the West Coast. He's had a lot of success out there. He's a former champion of the NASCAR Winston West Series, but he decided he wanted to do something about his name. He moved east, went to work for the Rainier Walsh racing team just to be close to things in this part of the country. He had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to drive for Greg Sacks at Martinsville, Virginia, but didn't make the show there. But he is in the car this weekend at Sonoma, California. And Lance is the subject of this week's Inside NASCAR Profile.
As a regular on the West Coast racing scene over the past couple of years, Lance Hooper was a logical choice to try and qualify Greg Sacks' car on the Sears Point Road Course this weekend. Hooper was the 1995 Southwest Tour champion and followed that up last year with a Winston West title, the first time in series history that a rookie had ever won the championship. But early this year, he traded all that in to move to Charlotte, North Carolina, taking a job as a mechanic with Team Rainier Walsh while he tries to break into Winston Cup.
My goal has always been to race the Winston Cup and work up the ladder to achieve it. And after I won the Winston West Championship on the West Coast, I came back east and visited Ron Hornaday, and I talked to Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace, Robin Pemberton, and they all told me I got to be back here if I want to move on. And I did that in January and got a job here as a mechanic working on the Cup cars, learning how racing's done on the East Coast, and now I got an opportunity to drive one.
Hooper's first opportunity came at Martinsville 2 weeks ago when he filled in for Sacks after Sacks broke his foot in a testing session. The team didn't make the race, but Hooper did get a chance to put his Winston West experience to work.
Well, running for a championship, there's a lot of pressure and stress on you, and it prepared me that way. But as far as competing in the Winston Cup, the more laps you can get in these cars, the better you're going to get. And the Winston West, it's the same cars, and it helped me to prepare for today and future.
Hooper isn't the first West Coast graduate to try this route. Mike Skinner also worked as a mechanic before getting a prime ride. And drivers like Chad Little and Derek Cope also cut their teeth in the Winston West Series.
All the West Coast guys that come out here and try to get a shot at it, you know, they've done real well, and they show that it is possible to make it in the Winston Cup. And it's a lot of hard work, and hopefully someday I'll be able to run the Winston Cup full time.
That day may not be too far off. Officials at Rainier Walsh say they'd like to develop Hooper's talent. Filling in for Sacks is definitely a good way to start.
Well, that's all the time we have for this show. We hope you enjoyed it, and our thanks to all the folks here at Aiken Sutton Motorsports for allowing us to show you around their facilities. The next race for the Busch Series is next Saturday, May the 10th, at Loudon, New Hampshire, a race that you can see live right here on TNN. You join us again here on TNN for more on Inside NASCAR.